Toronto was built on sacred land that is part of an agreement between Indigenous peoples and extended to allied nations to peacefully and respectfully care for it. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the program. This is Open Data Day Television, and it's GOODtube. We're doing a simulcast, and I just want to tell you a little bit about what's going on. My name is Keith McDonald. I'm your VJ for today, Director of Communications for Go Open Data. And I'm trying this as a first experiment for us because we're on Zoom, and I have the Zoom feed back here so I can see that it's there. And of course, I can see on the feed that you also have me in the corner as well, because I'm actually simulcasting from a tool called Melon, which is going to YouTube. Melon works much better on YouTube. And I just got a text message too. Melon works much better from going to YouTube. Now, actually, the message is saying that Yuri, our executive director, is not getting anything from YouTube, and that's because I have a feeling the address got compromised. So I will get to that in a second because we are definitely on YouTube. Okay, I want to explain. Melon is going to YouTube because it's a much better signal. So I'm actually sharing my screen on Zoom to Melon to get to YouTube, and also for the Zoom folks, we're on Zoom as well. So as we go, I'm going to try and figure out how to disconnect my photo in the corner there that you can see on your Zoom feed. It's not happening on the GOODtube channel. So that being said, I'm going to stop sharing the screen just momentarily. Actually, I'm afraid if I do that, I'm going to lose my my connection to YouTube. Okay, so it's an interesting experiment, and it is Open Data Day across the world. It's an international event. In fact, it's really become an Open Data Week. And it's a lot of things are going on, including something with our Canadian Open Data Society folks at 3:30 this afternoon. I want to mention that early in, if you're interested, they're talking about open data fundraising opportunities. It's at 3:30, and you can go to their website, CanadianOpenDataSociety.com, to register for that event. And so what I've got planned is to show you some videos from around the world. This is a pretty well one-way conversation, although chat is available, and we'll see if I can get to that with everything that's going on, should you have any comments. But what I want to do is highlight some of these videos, and really from an education, teaching, presentation standpoint. A lot of these are fantastic as icebreakers and momentum shifts. You know, there's a saying in television, or there used to be, that jolts per minute, right? If you want to keep people alert and staying tuned, you need to constantly provide them some invigorating stuff so that they're not tuning out. So one of the strategies as a presenter, putting on my presentation coach hat, is to do just that in live presentations. What we're finding with the Zoom mentality too is that it's really talking heads, right? You bring your slide deck, and of course you can see what we're seeing on Zoom right now with the person on the side and the deck on the bigger part of the screen. That can work, but when we get back to live presentations, and I sure hope we do soon, you know, it's good to bring in some what I call the icebreakers or motivational pieces that that invigorate conversation and attention. And you'll see that a bit later on in the show. What I'm going to start out with is some of the more standard fare videos, although the exception is the very first one that I'm going to show. This is a video that I put together based on an open data song. And it's basically in less than a minute, or about a minute, explaining what open data is, which is one of the standard fares that you want to start with. Before I run it, actually, Yuri, if you're monitoring here, if you get people to just go to our YouTube address. They will see the feed on the YouTube channel, the basic channel. It shows a live feed happening now. I think that's the easiest way rather than trying to give you the address and type it here so I can keep going. Yeah, I think what happened is Melon, when it went live, actually, some reason altered the address, which I don't know why, but I don't have time to figure that out right now. So hopefully you'll excuse some of the technical issues that we might have. Back to where I was talking about, this is the Open Data song, and it explains Open Data. It's not the full song. On the clip that's available, you'll have the brief introduction as to what Open Data is using the song, and then the full song plays after that. So I'm not going to run the full song because we're going to hear that a bit later on a film. I will add that this is something that I became known for. It became a virtual thing for me. It's been used in London, England, France, Miami, various other places that I can think of, Australia, and including China, which actually got me an invite to present at a Go Open Data conference in China. So it was kind of cool for me from that standpoint, but I think it serves as a good introduction to what Open Data is in 3 simple terms. So we'll run that, and then we'll move into some more standard fare as we keep going here on our GOODtube TV on Go Open Data Day 2022.
You say data, I say data, but it doesn't really matter. Open data, no it doesn't really matter long as it's free, machine readable, and available. Open data, or open data, no it doesn't really matter long as it's free, machine readable, and available. One more time, long as it's free, machine readable, and available.
So it's at this point that the video will continue, and you can get the full song. As I say, we'll not show that, just so you know it's there at the end of the clip. So what's interesting about that is really it comes down to the idea of free, machine readable, and available, which has been one of the things that we've been pounding into people's heads when we talk about open data. So that's a very simplistic version of it. I call the song the Open Data National Anthem, by the way. But one of the best, more detailed fare for talking about what open data is actually done by Grand Prairie and their open data initiative. And we actually use this in one of our presentations as well. So shout out to Grand Prairie today. This will give you a really good insight and can be used because it's fairly short, which is also good, explaining what open data is all about. So let's take a look.
The County of Grand Prairie has joined governments across the world who are opening their files and unlocking their hard drives, unleashing the potential of open data. This open information is changing the way people work, make day-to-day decisions, and solve problems. Open data takes information that the government has been collecting for its own use for years and makes it available for anyone to use. The data is uploaded to an online data catalog and is free and accessible 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. As always, sensitive information or information subject to confidentiality and privacy legislation will remain private and secure. Most of us think of data as just numbers, statistics, and spreadsheets. But data is our day-to-day experiences, what goes on around us in our homes, on our farms, in our communities, and across the world. We can take that information and use it as it is, slice it and dice it into a format we find useful, or even combine publicly available data with private data and create something completely new and useful. Open data makes our governments more transparent and accountable. But just as important, it makes it easier for citizens to communicate with government and with each other. That leads to collaboration and cooperation. People become more informed and engaged. Businesses can save time and make smarter decisions. Around the world, open data is being used in a number of creative ways, simplifying tasks people do every day. Here's some examples being used. A smartphone application to find the nearest walk-in clinic, pharmacy, or emergency department. In just one tap, you can view the location, the hours, and even the services the clinic offers. You can even access a one-stop source of highway construction information, which is used to help commuters find alternate routes around construction zones. And these are only a few of the endless possibilities for open data. Open data is a powerful, innovative concept that allows easy access of information to citizens in order to build better workforces, better communities, and a better society. Open data, making the County of Grand Prairie and you partners in growth and innovation. Visit the County of Grand Prairie's Open Data Catalog today at data.countygp.ab.ca.
Cool, right? Can we get any more dots in there with gp.ab.ca? I think that's changed somewhat in the years since this was created, actually, but it's a very good example, I think, of a quick and sweet and nicely put together package on what open data is. Moving from that to the slightly more complex, we have what we put together.
Welcome to Open Data 101, presented by the Go Open Data Association in collaboration with the Canadian Open Data Society.
I'm always hearing slight delay. So this one actually is what we put together from Go Open Data. We found it quite useful for some Zoomcasts that we've been doing. We called it the Western Tour, as we did some Data for Good presentations in meetings in Saskatchewan. I keep wanting to call it Saskatoon, but Saskatchewan is the upper level of that, and Calgary, and also Vancouver. So we showed this presentation, and we had some good chat afterwards. It's about 20 minutes, so it's much longer, so I'm not going to feature it today. It is available on our channel, as are all of these on a list, education and edutainment, because that's really what we're talking about, right? We want to present some education devices and also somewhat entertaining. So this one is a lot more detailed and is very specific to Ontario. Our colleagues at the Canadian Open Data Association have produced one.
Welcome to Open Data 101.
And they did this for their conference last year.
Open Data Society.
And it's bilingual,
Executive Director of the Society.
which is very cool if you're looking for a bilingual presentation. So bonjour à tous. Bienvenue à Open Data. Not sure how to say that en français. Oh yeah, here it is. Données ouvertes. If I look at the screen capture of it. So Cause has put together, again, a very nice presentation that is very different to ours, not because it's got the two languages and so on, but it's also very good in a much more detailed. What I would say, though, to presenters is these ones are harder to use in a live presentation because they are so long. And people coming live really expect not to watch a video per se, especially a longer one. So this is useful if you wanted to send it out or have it on a website. And by all means, we're encouraging you to share these as much as you can, actually. So they're really useful for a more a stretch presentation. And also the link, again, I'll present that here, CanadianOpenDataSociety.com, to access some of their materials, which is quite reasonable to do. Because they're working in the same milieu as we are, of course. Good as being a more regional, Ontario-wide, and one of our mandates, of course, is to connect with as many people as possible. So this is what we've been doing, and meeting up with Data with Good, Open North, Open Data Partnership, Open Government Partnership, GovLab, a number of different organizations we've been involved with, and trying to access as much of what's going on so that we can share that with our members. And okay, now we're going to move into less formal, and we're going to get a little progressively more wicked in the desire to be less formal as we go through the remaining videos for today. And I think the reason for that is myself and a colleague named Richard Pietro felt, and we've had a lot of conversations about these over the years, that we need to sell open data much like you sell soap. Or if you think about the advertising world, where often there's vignettes and different things to attract attention. So both Richard and I have done a number of things, and we're going to feature Richard's work as well as some of my own today that falls into that category. And these are particularly useful as icebreakers or motivational pieces to get things started, or perhaps as you go into a break, you can show something like this, and it piques people's interest. But you be the judge when you see some of these things. This first one is done by Richard Pietro. And it's about open data mandalas, and it's self-explanatory as we run the clip. Take it away.
We are open people, people for the internet, social and in the new world. We are transparent, accountable, and engaging change agents, focused, determined, and generally awkward. We've been disillusioned and disappointed, we've been disgusted and nauseated. We're creating a revolution for the new millennium. Participatory democracy, not party politics, because we're politically apolitical. We're individuals and communities who are engaging neighborhoods, connecting people, and planning events. You'll find us on Twitter, on YouTube, on blogs, and off BlackBerry. Communicating online, replying inline, taking it offline, and not sitting on the sideline. Hashtags are our friends. We use smiley faces and frowny faces, but only when we see ugly places. And you'll find us neck deep in a data portal, firmly footed in a value system, and our inner spirit is freely available. We're local, regional, provincial, national, universal, and we are Zen. Uploading data, downloading torrents, moving laterally, and waiting patiently for JSON, as well as CSV, XML, GIS, API, FOI, and TLAs make us LOL. We buy smartphones, we wear smartwatches, we eat smart food, we flash Ubuntu. We're coders that don't hack, or hackers that don't code. Out of the machine and in the net. Publish early and publish often is our motto. Listen carefully and respond quickly is our mantra. We relate to people. We disengage from tradition. We're clear with our intentions, we follow through on our promises, we roll with the punches, and we judo chop the adversarial process. Because we're non-confrontational, unconventional, indispensable, pro-discussion, well-designed, open-source, old-fashioned hipsters that can reverse a mandate with a viral video. We're virtuous schemers with selfish reasons, benevolent pains in the ass. Because we're all about progress, you know? Growth potential and scalability, embracing creativity, doing away with mediocrity. So enough of this clay layer. The red tape is leaving, the blue skies are ripping, the green lights are frozen, the Mandelas have spoken. Join us and you too can be open.
Cool, eh? Actually, Lee, who's watching on Zoom, has said, "Is that like George Carlin going on?" And actually, I think Richard was inspired by George Carlin on that one. Yeah, it's really wonderful how that was popped together. Oh, I didn't show up there talking in the dark. This next one actually features my cats when they were kittens. And you might say, what have cats got to do with open data? Well, I was watching them play, and it occurred to me that it's kind of like we've been saying to people, is you have to explore and go in and experiment. So we'll run this one and see what you think. Ah, yes, the cats. Now, a few people said when they watched that, they said, we're just watching the cats. We're not really looking at the text. So maybe you have to see that more than once. But they're cuties, and it just occurred to me that that's really the part of the process. We often say too many cooks are a good thing when it comes to open data. And that's quite true. If more people weigh in, often people will see things that the first group or first person that's been working on it hasn't seen. So that's something to keep in mind. And we're going to have a few quick commercial breaks brought to you by our sponsor, and this is our first one.
The following is a public service announcement brought to you by the Go Open Data Association. Do you believe in open data principles? Are you involved in open data work? You have a chance to do some good. Join us at the Go Open Data Association now. Become a member, volunteer, or donate. We need your help, and you can do some good. Go to go-opendata.ca now.
Yeah, we'd like to see...
the following is a public service announcement.
Okay, we would like to see... There we go. We would like to see some folks join us at Good. You can find the information, of course, at go-opendata.ca. And, okay, I think I'm settling down a bit. It's wonderful to be live, and we've got on the screen right now, go up to full screen on that. This is actually all the Open Data Day events that are happening across the world today. If you notice up in the top left, we've got Canada, and there's 3 events scheduled across Canada today. There's one in Winnipeg and one with the CODS people that I told you about, Canadian Open Data Society, and of course ours. So it's very interesting to see that it's worldwide. A little bit later, we're going to talk about that upper right corner toward the end of the show, where you see there's a big blank there. And just gaze at the map for a second. I have the chance to go a little fuller on our YouTube screen. Actually, yeah, you do see that on YouTube, but our background here, that star effect, the balloon, is kind of capsulizing some of the top corner stuff, so some of the text doesn't show there that well. Okay, I digress. I want to talk about the fact, though, that it is around the world stuff. This one actually comes from Italy, and it may be a bit long for you, but I wanted to bring in some other languages as well. And so let's just see what Italy is doing in their open data.
Sentito mai parlare di open data? Sono i dati aperti del patrimonio informativo pubblico che la pubblica amministrazione mette a disposizione della collettività. Regioni, enti locali, agenzie regionali, ASL e altri enti pubblicano dati utili a cittadini, imprese, studenti, professionisti. Attraverso gli open data, il patrimonio pubblico della cultura, del turismo, del trasporto, della salute, del lavoro e dell'economia torna a essere un bene di tutti, usabile da chiunque per conoscere l'operato dell'amministrazione e costruire nuovi servizi e applicazioni. A chi servono gli open data? Sicuramente ai cittadini, che possono monitorare e valutare in modo trasparente la gestione della cosa pubblica. Un esempio può essere il portale soldipubblici.gov.it, attraverso il quale è possibile conoscere quanto regioni, comuni, ministeri spendono e in quali ambiti. Grandi opportunità anche per le imprese, che possono mettere sul mercato servizi e applicazioni utili alla comunità. L'app dedicata al trasporto pubblico nella città di Bolzano ne è un esempio. L'azienda creatrice ha infatti dato ai cittadini l'opportunità di scegliere la soluzione migliore per spostarsi in città. Dati aperti utili anche per gli studenti, che possono creare applicazioni, mappe interattive o report statistici. I ragazzi del Polo Tecnico Franchetti Salviani di Città di Castello hanno realizzato l'app Vinumbria, una mappa georeferenziata delle zone di produzione dei vini umbri.
Unless you speak Italian, it may not make too much sense.
Gli studi
But
tecnici
what's
hanno
interesting,
potuto utilizzare i dati dei fabbricati
trying to
rilasciati
bring
dalla
the
regione
volume
Umbria
down a
dopo il
little bit.
sisma del 2016 e i giornalisti hanno l'opportunità di usare open data per informare i cittadini. E l'Umbria cosa ha fatto e cosa sta facendo in tema di open data? Anche grazie ai fondi messi a disposizione dall'Unione Europea con il Porfers si è partiti con
Oh,
la
right.
costruzione di una piattaforma,
I just realized that I'm hearing it with a
dati.umbria.it,
different
contenitore di tutti gli
headset,
open
which is
data
another
delle
difficulty.
amministrazioni umbre.
Hopefully the volume dropped a little
Contestualmente
bit
si è
and
avviato un
you're
percorso di
hearing me talk.
informazione e
Basically, I wanted to
formazione
say
finalizzato a
it's still
sensibilizzare i
quite easy
dipendenti
to
pubblici
understand
sull'importanza
what
dell'apertura
open
dei
data is
propri
all about,
dati.
even though
L'obiettivo
it's a
della
different
regione è
language.
quello di mettere a disposizione di tutti un'ampia quantità di dati consultabili e di conseguenza di servizi e applicazioni che li utilizzano. Open data per nuove opportunità di business, migliore gestione della pubblica amministrazione e maggiore partecipazione civica.
Okay, I'm just actually going to a different headset here to see what we're getting on YouTube. Right. It would be very good to have a producer. This is a solo show, but I like the Italian one quite a lot. I think it's on visual again. So the world isn't alone in producing materials, and that's quite a fun example. There's some legislation which is being mimicked quite a bit, certainly in the States, in California in particular. I have to ask, though, where's Canada on this? I know the current government is planning some things, but it's really important we take a good look at some of those laws that are coming into play because they're actually quite authoritarian. Hate to use that word, but it's true. It's not so much what the GDPR is doing, although it's got a flavor like that. And the fact is we're not there yet, but it's very important. I think if you have any interest in who's controlling the internet and so on, you take a look at what the government is planning. It died on the vine when the last election was called, but they are resurrecting it. And I believe at the time it was called Bill C-10, and it's got a different number attached to it. Michael Geist is a good person to follow on Twitter because he's talking about these issues. But let's play this. This is actually a comedian who is based in the UK, Sarah Weller, and she wrote something called the GDPR Song. She's a songwriter as well. And you can find her at thepowerofuke.com. Why uke? You'll see in a sec.
Young man, have you heard about this? I said, young man, do you run a business? Cause the EU, they have got a new law and it probably affects your data that you hold unawares. Personal data, not like anyone cares. You must email everyone on your list. They must all confirm they love you. Wow, 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 wow. It's fun to comply with GDPR. It's fun to comply with GDPR. You will feel so much joy. You will feel so adored when not everyone unsubscribes. GDPR. It's fun to comply with GDPR. What a way to spend time filling forms out of line. I've never felt more alive. I ask all my freelancer friends what the rules are, and they say it depends if they signed up or if you signed up then. Have you changed your content lately? I type what is GDPR into Google and I don't get that far, not a Google. What action I should take? Is it something in my MailChimp? Wow, 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 wow. It's fun to comply with GDPR. It's fun to comply with GDPR. 50 emails a day asking if I should stay, and I don't know who they are. GDPR. It's fun to comply with GDPR. It's fun to comply with GDPR. It's fun to comply with GDPR. They will put you in jail. They will close down your biz if you fail to do all this shiz. I say GDP, you say GDP, GDP. I say GDP, you say GDP, GDP. All the things I do to avoid GDP.
Wow. Okay. So now you know why it's all about the uke. I think that's pretty interesting, actually, in a number of ways. And hopefully, there's going to be a few earworms today, as they're called, and that might be one of them. So you may be singing that on your way home. Any Seinfeld fans out there may remember it's a wonderful scene where the father, the first time they meet, actually, I'm having a mental freeze. God, who's the character? Julia Louis-Dreyfus actually played the character Elaine. Her father. Anyway, George has been humming the song from a Broadway musical. I think it was Master of the House. Master of the House. Anyway, it ends with the father who had been quite critical of him doing that, singing it in the car. That's an example of an earworm. So maybe GTPR is going to stick. There'll be a few others maybe that'll replace that. But that's some stuff going on in the UK. And I've been fortunate to meet a lot of folks from around the world, including a couple in the UK. Manchester is doing some wonderful things in open data, as a matter of fact. And it's really interesting to see the things we have in common and the things that are being done differently. I've met people in Saudi Arabia, China, and let's see, London and the Philippines and so on. And what's interesting when I've had chats with them is they all seem to think the other person's doing a better job as we're talking about it. He goes, no, I thought what you did was wonderful. Wonderful, really? And they said, well, I thought what you were doing was wonderful. So it's actually interesting when you actually connect and see. And it just shows that we all have similar goals and similar frustrations sometimes when things don't come out as we've planned. Let's move a little closer to home. This is Philadelphia, and this is kind of reminiscent of what we saw at the start. It's fairly straightforward, but again, nice graphics here. So let's take a look.
Data is everywhere and valuable to everyone. Data can tell you stories about the past and help you make decisions about the future. Government collects and uses data every day, and it's working to release as much of it as possible. Open data does not only increase government transparency, open data puts meaningful information in the hands of the people, which they can use to improve their lives and do amazing things. Since 2012, the City of Philadelphia has released hundreds of data sets that have been used by an enthusiastic community to build tools, tell stories, and help others. In Philadelphia, open data can help you look up crime incidents that have taken place in your neighborhood with PHL Crime Mapper, a tool built from open crime data. Open data can help you research property assessment and municipal information for a specific address on the city's website using open property data. It can even help you find bike lanes, public pools, and healthy corner stores using maps built from open streets, parks and recreation, and public health data. Want to dive a bit deeper? The city releases data through Philadelphia's community open data portal, opendataphilly.org. Search by keywords or categories for the data that interests you. To download the data, select the dataset and file type. Some datasets come with visualizations, like the Open Budget application. You can take part in the City of Philadelphia's open data conversation too. Visit phila.gov/data to browse datasets and provide feedback on which unreleased datasets would be useful to you. Open data is valuable and can be used by everyone, including you. What will you discover?
Nice question. What will you discover? I've just had a comment on actually the term was weapons up in the upper left corner of our feed. I think it's actually meant to be a balloon. And when you see it in context of the background there, it might look a little bit better. I'll try to work on that. I kind of feel like a bit like in the Wizard of Oz, you know, when the wizard actually gets in the balloon and it starts to take off, and I don't know how to stop it. So I'm not sure if I can change the background while we're actually live streaming. So I should reassert that this is a bit of an experiment for us, and wing and a prayer kind of thing. So I'll look and see if I can do that, because I agree it is kind of interfering. And I prefer a bigger picture as opposed to the smaller picture that I just went down to. So, okay, that's one thing that we'll consider and see what we can do. We're going to move into now what I'd call more the public engaging side. This is another video from Richard. Let's take a look.
Public engagement
Oh, sorry.
is
Let me pause that. Richard is next. This is actually a Canadian government. What is public engagement? So let's take a look at this first.
public engagement is anything that we do to involve citizens and stakeholders in government decision making and the activities and business of government. I think the question for me is, why is open government important to public engagement? Because public engagement is about involving stakeholders and citizens in the way government operates. And in order for people to be involved, they need to know what's going on. And so it's our job as public servants to work in the open, to let people know what we're working on, to gather information and data. And the more we publish data openly, it allows people to come in to the fold and have those conversations with us. There's so much information out there. There is a website called Consulting Canadians, and people can go there and get a list of the consultations that are happening, where they're happening, when they're happening, what the topics for consideration are. Another place is the Open Government website. People can go to the Open Government website and see the topics of conversation. They can even feed into the opening of government. So the more people are involved in analyzing data with us, in considering options, in pondering trade-offs, in thinking about what the possibilities are and analyzing the directions that we could go together in the future, the better off we're going to be in terms of making evidence-based decisions. A question that we have right now is, how do you want to be engaged? How do you want to be involved? What's missing from the equation that is preventing you from participating in consultations or from explaining your point of view to the government? Let us know on open.canada.ca.
Okay, I think we might have made that a little bit better, and I'm sorry if that caused some confusion as I was changing templates during the discussion. Nice, straightforward video, well spoken in front of the camera, and kind of cool as well in terms of the open government side, right? Where we want people involved in that as well. And I checked out those links, and they're still good. You can find out the interactions that are happening, and it's really good to be involved. One of the things we talk about, of course, is citizens becoming engaged, and it's much better if the usual group doesn't always do it. More unfamiliar names, the better, because there is very much kind of, oh, not him again, or not them again, or not her again, writing letters and so on. It's great if we have a lot more different folks or first-timers. So if you're a first-timer, consider doing something like that, engaging in town halls and government interactions, be they provincial, federal, or even local. Now we go back to a perfect icebreaker. This is a Richard Pietro video, and if you're a Star Trek fan, there'll be a lot of cool things in this one for you to like.
Open government and open data, the final frontier. These are the voyages of the Starship engagement. Its continuing mission to implement strange new procedures, to seek out new ideas and practices, to boldly go where no government has gone before. Very cool.
And okay, I've been doing some adjustments on there, which again, I hope didn't interfere too much with the video. But we got rid of those things on the side and the weapons or the balloons. So we are getting there just in time for another word from our sponsor.
Hi there. I'm a good volunteer. No, I don't mean good as in good. I mean good as in Go Open Data. You see, there's this association called the Go Open Data Association, and they're looking for volunteers. Now, I'm doing this anonymously because I don't want my day job to realize how much fun I'm actually having by being a good volunteer. It's not that I don't like my day job. It's just that good gives me an opportunity to explore some more creative aspects of what I can offer. And I got to tell you, it's been a gas. So anyway, it's important that I mask that. You know, I have to go into work and look miserable and feel miserable just, you know, because everybody else does. But as a matter of fact, I can go home and I can work on these things and explore other opportunities. But don't let me be the, the poster boy or poster person, if you like, for good. I'm just saying that for me it works, and I just prefer to be anonymous. That's basically what I'm saying. If you're interested in becoming a good volunteer, well, go to their website, which is go-opendata.ca, and check out what they're doing and what they have to offer in terms of subject matter, and see if you'd like to fit in. I think you will. I have to say, becoming a good volunteer has been one of the best things I've ever done. Is that okay? Did that work? You think anybody will come and join the website, or even look at the website? You think? Maybe. Okay. Very good. All right. Let's move on to another project.
Indeed. It's good to be a good volunteer. So we're actually moving into now more challenging videos, shall we say, different, stretching the minds a little bit. So they're not exactly the most straightforward, but they're interesting all the same. And I think you'll see what I mean as I've got a few in a row here that are using pop culture as their motif, which is also useful. One of the things as a presenter too is you want to make sure you're on the current cusp of pop culture. Dating yourself is quite easy. So you have to be sure that your audience is aware of some of these things. Fortunately, The Matrix has made a comeback in another episode recently. So this is still viable because of that. And the same with Star Trek, actually, with the new Picard show. But if it gets too dated, yeah, it may be time to find something else or make something else. This one, I think you'll enjoy. It's another Richard Prieto production. It's called The Open Matrix.
I know you're out there. I can feel you now. I know that you're afraid. You're afraid of change. You're afraid that it might get worse. I don't know the future. I didn't come here to tell you that we don't want you. I came here to tell you that we can't do it without you. I'm going to hang up this phone, and then I'm going to show these people that we can have a better world. I'm going to show them an open world, a world where we're all engaged, a world without limits, a world where anything is possible. Where we go from there is a choice I leave to you.
Yeah, the open matrix, it's an interesting way of looking at it for sure. I'm just going to try stopping video. What does this do on Zoom? Yay! At least I've got my my face off the Zoom feed on the side. It's having to be aware that you're also on camera all the time is something that's an interesting part of our experiment today. So that at least gives me a break from the side view. That's the Zoom, folks. Again, YouTube is not having that issue. Okay, I don't want this to be the Richard and Keith show in a sense of these particular videos, but really in my searches, there's very few people, if any, who are doing this kind of thing, which I think is an interesting aspect of the situation regarding communicating open data. I'm a big fan, as you can tell, of a bit more stretching in terms of how you communicate, as these videos are showing in our next sequence. This one in particular is actually a full-on movie. It's not 120 minutes. It's actually our longest video for today. And it goes back to the Matrix theme, and it's also by Richard. But it's very interesting, and it's interesting from a number of points. Technically how it's shot, as was the last one, wonderful editing. This one really spoofs a number of things, from Monty Python to the Matrix itself, of course. And blue pill, red pill. You really have to know about the Matrix to maybe understand all of this, but it's got a number of levels there, and it's, I think, particularly good for what I'd call, and I hate to use the word younger, but in some ways younger audiences, or the Matrix audience, or science fiction audience. It's really applicable to that. So if you've got some, I think, tech developers and so on, it's a good video for that kind of purpose. But you take a look and see what you think. And again, all of these are available for use, depending on your situation. And I encourage you to have a good look at our playlist on our GoodTube channel. Let's take it away for the O3 Open.
This film will present a digest of some basic research. This film will present a digest of some basic research which explains how the use of well-selected 16mm motion picture teaching films has improved instruction.
Let me tell you why I'm here. It's because I know something. What I know can't be explained, but you can feel it. You felt it your whole career. Felt that something's wrong with your 9-to-5 grind. Felt that we need progress, but don't know how or where to begin. But it's there, like a splinter in your mind driving you mad. It's this feeling that's brought me to you. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Open government, open data, and open source.
Yes. O3. Do you want to know what it is? O3 is everywhere, even now in this very room. You use it when you wake up in the morning or choose where to buy your coffee. You feel its effect when you commute, when you share your opinions. It's the presence of a world that you don't yet acknowledge, but impacts every aspect of your life. Unfortunately, no one can be told what O3 is. You have to experience it for yourself. This is your last chance. After this, you won't want to turn back. Take the blue Smartie, and this life continues forever and ever. Take the red Smartie, and I show you what progress really looks like. Remember, I'm simply a messenger. The Smartie you took was just to distract you, because I'm about to give you the Vulcan neck pinch.
What?
This is our co-working space. It's our ecosystem. We can do anything from creating new apps to developing new relationships, hold events or meetings, design or attend workshops, do alpha and beta testing, anything we need.
Right now, we're in an open work environment.
Is it really so hard to believe? Your clothes are different. There's lively and engaged chatter in your ears. Your wedgie is dislodged. Your mindset is now what we call comfortable. It's the final realization of your subconscious self.
But can anyone actually get work done in this environment?
What is a work environment? How do you define a work environment? If you're talking about cubicles, drab colors, fluorescent lighting, and TPS reports, a work environment is simply a place for doing things. This is the world that you know, the world as it was at the end of the 20th century. It exists now only as part of a mentally depressing paradigm that we call the bureaucracy. You've been living in a closed world, a world that's being replaced by this.
You've never heard of short circuit? Like these images look familiar, if that makes any sense.
Welcome to an open community. We only have bits and pieces of information, but what we do know is that at a certain point in the early 21st century, all of mankind was united in celebration. We marveled at our own magnificence as we gave birth to open government, open data, and open source.
O3.
A communal realization that spawned massive changes in the culture of how we do things. We don't know exactly how it happened, but we know things started changing with the arrival of the internet. Throughout human history, we've been dependent on hierarchies to be innovative, responsive, and efficient. Fate, it seems, is not without a sense of irony. The internet creates more per second than the entire Renaissance and gives all people an equal opportunity to share their perspectives and ideas. Combined with the proper social tools, the internet has ushered a new collaborative dynamic between the people and their government. There are sites, endless sites, where people are no longer indifferent, they're engaged. For the longest time, I wouldn't believe it. But then I saw these sites with my own eyes, saw the transparency tools that are actually effective at keeping people accountable for their words and actions. Observed citizens working together with public servants. Standing there, facing the pure, delightful progress, I came to realize the obviousness of the truth. What is O3? Trust. O3 is a new social standard designed to foster accountability, transparency, and engagement in order to bring about a functional relationship between people and government.
You've got to be joking, right?
I never said it would be easy. I only said this is what progress looks like. And it's happening now.
This may work for coding apps and websites, but the government is too big and messy. Can't be done.
You have to let it all go. Fear, doubt, disbelief. Open your mind.
say data, I say data, but it doesn't really matter. Open data, open data. No, it doesn't really matter long as it's free, machine readable, and available. You may say a PDF is good enough. If they don't like it, well, that's just tough. Well, that's not open. That data's frozen. Can't boil that ocean. Here's a notion, make it free, machine readable, and available.
Most binaural I speak with have no idea what short circuit is.
Oh, really?
Totally.
I actually, frankly, like this.
That movie was shot in Toronto.
But I've never.
I think so, yeah.
You never heard of short circuit?
Like these images look familiar, if that makes any sense. Like I think it crossed my visage as a younger man, but I'm just like, yeah, I know very little.
Johnny Five.
Yeah.
Actually, and I think.
Sure.
Good movie.
Yeah. It was.
One of my. They had the second one too, right?
Machine readable and available. One more time, long as it's free, machine readable and available.
Cool. Thanks for using that, Richard. Again, the Open Data song. My music handle is at Cheryl's Crush. I like that last line about my visage as a youth. Didn't see it. That's a really cool way of putting it, isn't it? I remember Short Circuit. Okay, so interesting, right? Again, multi-level there about all kinds of things, but I love the concept of O3 in particular with the open, open, open. Next, I want to show something that segues quite nicely to that. This is something that was produced by myself and text written by Larry Klein. Larry is a former colleague who's still working at the City of Toronto, but when I was there, Larry wrote a thing that's really interesting talent that he's got, which is he's able to write something that when you play it forward or read it forward, it means something. If you reverse it, it means something completely different. So it's kind of two ways of seeing and goes to our attitude, how we feel about something, optimist, pessimist, that kind of thing. So let's take a look at this one.
Humanity is finished. Humanity is finished. You can't say we have a future. When you look around, think about it. Realize who's really in control. Quantum computers will understand. Managing your personal data, determining your movements, running your life. You're the one the robots want to fix. Disease and environmental decay are problems that will continue to make a big impact on people, but they certainly don't have much effect on machines. Musicians, artists, and storytellers won't hold the same value anymore. Their decision-making will give way to faster AI, and therefore, they'll lose some of their power. Governments? They know technology is changing every day, changing everything. There's a new generation of human beings with flesh and blood and new ideas, but still, the future is scary and uncertain. Things could go either way. So, are you an optimist or a pessimist? So, are you an optimist or a pessimist? Things could go either way. The future is scary and uncertain, but still, with flesh and blood and new ideas, there's a new generation of human beings, changing everything. They know technology is changing every day. Governments? They'll lose some of their power. Their decision-making will give way to faster AI and therefore won't hold the same value anymore. Musicians, artists, and storytellers don't have much effect on machines, but they certainly will continue to make a big impact on people. Disease and environmental decay are problems that the robots want to fix. You are the one running your life, determining your movements, managing your personal data. Quantum computers will understand. Realize who's really in control. Think about it. When you look around, we have a future. You can't say humanity is finished.
Again, text by Larry Klein. Thank you so much, Larry. I think that raises some interesting questions, too, when we move into the AI arena, which is clearly happening, and how data is used, and whether or not AI, in fact, will be open and transparent in terms of how it made decisions, etc. And can we challenge AI? The Ontario government has been doing some work on that regard in terms of scoping out their ethics. And interestingly, with the election coming up, movement on that is on hold, which concerns me a little bit, simply because life goes on, right, whether there's an election or not. And I think it demonstrates that whatever the law is that stipulates that, let's say, provincial staff cannot deliver their mandate, the open data group, the AI group, etc., while the election is on, it suggests that it's specifically related to the government in power at the time. So I'm a little upset about that, and I'd like to do some digging around why that might be the case. You can still get your driver's license, for example. It doesn't go on hold when an election is called. If open data and the open movement is not entrenched, much like equal access or discrimination issues, we're still going to have a problem with it. So it's a plus and a knock against the government. I don't blame the teams working on it because they're subject to the law. But I certainly blame the government, and it's not just the conservative government. This happens every time an election is called, no matter who is in power, that restricts movement on that. So we're not sure what's going to happen with the ethical AI come the next election, because it may very well have a different government. And if that's the case, would they rip it all up and start all over again? Who knows? So that's something as a bit of an aside, a bit of a rant. Let's move on. I want to show you something now that was done when the City of Toronto first started their Open Data Initiative. Myself, Trish Garner, Reham Youssef, and a number of other people were involved in the initiative. It was off-the-desk work at the time. And one of the people included was Denis Carr, who is the current Open Data lead supervisor for the Open Data Initiative in the City of Toronto. And I was the previous Open Data lead. And Denis and I have a ongoing State of the Union discussions, so I keep up to date on what's going on. But back then, this was 2008-ish, Denis and I put our heads together for a live presentation at the City Council chambers, and we wanted to suggest, in an amusing way, what data was and is and can do. So we came up with the concept of a sitcom involving data. So if data were people, or sort of like people, what might they look like, and how might they talk, and how might they talk about open data? So again, this one's an interesting stretch. You can imagine the impact in 2008 when open data really wasn't known at all. Let me know what you think about this one. It's called the Open Data Nuclear Family Sitcom.
The humans seemingly want all of our data to be available 8.64 times 10 to the 12 nanoseconds of solar day throughout a 6.048 times 10 to the 13 nanosecond period. I do not understand this. Please explain.
We all grow up to be mature data, son. Some of us to be the most desired open data of all.
But I am not prepared to commence the working components of my binary existence at this time.
But with modern technology, we can remain in contact and perhaps interact and work together in what is commonly referenced as a mashup, in an application downloadable by people who have smartphones and even have some downtime.
But I do not care about these purposes. I would much rather be part of a random access memory of some mindless video game next year.
I have long wanted our family to be a part of open data sets so that we could serve the citizens of this culturally rich city. You, my little data son, are very important. You will provide information about a specific part of the city that will help all who live here, maybe save lives. If we play our data chips right, you could become a part of traffic information that would assist humans in an emergency. This would be level 4 awesome.
My circuits are rising in temperature. I am afraid I am experiencing the blue screen of death, or if you are a Mac user, the rainbow ball.
It's okay, son. Your circuits are designed to accommodate periodic high system use fluctuations. In my day, we would overheat on purpose. I've lost many memories this way. Change is good, son. I've been many things in my life. Punch cards, 5.5, 3.25, even briefly as an Omega zip drive.
So you are saying it is my destiny?
Affirmative.
Hi, I'm headed to a mashup.
I'll be home at 100011001 hours. Backspace there, young lady. You cannot go out into public like that with an XML structure that does not match your open API platform. But,
Oh, I'm not sure what happened to the tail end there. Yes, so that was kind of interesting. Yeah, we did a second part of that midway through the presentation as well. And yeah, we got some good and also some quite negative reaction to that. But I think it's certainly interesting that back in the early days, we attempted something like that. So shout out to my buddy Denis for his efforts on that with me. And we'll be back again right after this promo. Yeah, there's nothing like throwing in some promo for us. And seriously, if you'd like to make for those that still with us on Zoom, we do have a GOODtube channel. And unfortunately, the curly queue is long and it's not as simple as youtube.com/GOODtube or Go Open Data. But you can find us on our website where we have links to the YouTube directly. So I appreciate it if you come and have a look. That would be great. And reason for like and subscribe is it really helps us someday of getting our own address, which would be great, but we need lots more subscribers before that happens. It's the state of the times these days. So, yeah, okay. So that's a little bit more out there stuff. I want to come back to the idea of around the world and move into some of the more tougher areas to deal with. By the way, Yuri has a question for me around any videos that use or that have use case on positive impact of open data. Interesting question, good question. And sadly, there are very, very few, if any. I thought I connected one here that I may have missed it, that just shows how an app was developed. It was one of the first apps. And gee, perhaps I didn't actually load it, which is my bad. It is on our playlist, however. One of the things I think we've found with open data is that's a really interesting question, because so many people that are reluctant to go with open data will say, well, how has it changed the world? Give me an example. Like, did you save a life? What? And they're quite persistent about it. And sadly, on that level, partly because all of the data that's really needed for some of those life-saving stuff has not been made available. So it's hard to really describe something that's, when we talk about apps being developed that give you transportation information, really extremely useful apps, right? But can we say it really changed the world? It's made it easier to get around, but it hasn't necessarily changed the world to the extent that people that ask that question seem to want. The only example I have, and there is no video about it, that's pretty good example of investigation and solution. New York City, back in the time of Mayor Bloomfield, had what they called the Geek Squad, not to be confused with the Best Buy Geek Squad. This was attached to the mayor's office, and they were investigator/data folk who would analyze and research and investigate issues impacting the city. And one of the major issues going on was in certain areas, there were major problems with drainage and sewers and so on. They were able to correlate restaurants, problem with the sewage systems, and they put the two together. And in fact, they found that these restaurants that were in particular nearby were actually draining fat and so on through the sinks. And their disposal mechanisms were not really as efficient or what should be expected for that kind of thing. So they put two and two together. They were able to charge, I guess, or citate those restaurants, and in fact solved much of the anxiety that was going on in those particular neighborhoods involved in backup of drainage and that kind of thing. Pretty remarkable when you think about it. But it's still very rare to find places or shops instituted like that within cities that are actually there to do that kind of work. So it's still very early days for open data. And I'm convinced once all of the data that is available, that includes some of the tougher data like crime, actual major health impacts like bed bugs, that kind of data is not really available. Crime, you might say, is available, but when you get down to it, there's a lot of coverage over specifics, partly due to privacy, but not only. Tougher part of open data, really, to sort of get down into the deep dives of very significant data and reconcile what may be privacy issues, or in some cases just maybe we don't want to give that specific information. Bed bugs is perfect because, you know, it affects real estate and all those kind of things. But in our city, in the city of Toronto, bed bugs are rampant. They're virtually in every single zone in the city. So wouldn't it be interesting if we were able to get that data and perhaps correlate why some zones are higher, why some zones are less, why some zones are equal, and maybe actually improve the bed bug situation? Just an example. But that data is not made available, not in Toronto. It is in New York City, by the way. So they've been able to make apartment rental apps that reflect that, among other issues. Data not available in Canada, actually. So let's move along. Back to the world. I mentioned quite early there about the Open Data Song getting known in China. I was invited to speak, and I did an interview with the organizer. His name is Dr. Fen Gao. And to be truthful, situation has changed so much in China. We're moving into our close for today. At the time, Xi Jinping hadn't named himself premier, president, chief guru for life, and things were opening up. And the fact that they have open data and that they actually had conferences and they were participating in things like Open Data Day, I thought was very significant. I felt we were on the cusp of some interesting times there. But that's really, unfortunately, and I say that quite sadly because I really enjoyed the time I spent there and the people that I met. And again, I think it's important to point out that it's not essentially the people that are at issue, it's the system of government. The advantages in China, even with open data, is if you are told to release the data, you release the data. And of course, data is pretty well, all data is reflected in the government officers or offices rather, or their storage mechanisms. So it's a different world, but Feng had some interesting opinions, and it's part of a longer interview. But this actually asked him about how open data started for him in China. He really is the person who began open data in China. Anybody else in your sphere of reference here in China that was thinking along the same way, or did you feel very much alone?
Yes. When I first come back, I think quite alone. I think when I first came back in 2013, I don't know who else actually doing open data in this country. And in 2014, I happened to know some folks because of the work I've been doing in China on social media. Where I set up an account on Weibo. It's called Open Knowledge Foundation China Group. And I did a lot of things on promoting what is open data. There's interesting case studies from, say, World Bank, Sunlight Foundation, many different blogs. I translated them back into Chinese and let people read it. And I started called followers on the Weibo. And the folks, some of them are journalists, some of them are IT guys, some of them are researchers. And I started also receiving private messages from them. And they would just say, "Oh, Fan, who are you actually? Why are you doing these things? What is actually open data? And where we can find open data in this country?" So we start actually chat with each other, communicate each other on what's the problem you see in your domain, saying how close data prevent you from doing more good things. And it's very interesting. In 2014 February, on the day of Open Data Day, I worked with a couple of fellows I know privately to form the Open Data China as a network.
So that was the experience with Dr. Fen Gao in terms of starting. And boy, it's so similar to how things started here and there and everywhere, really, with Open Data Day in particular being mentioned. And our issues are very, very much the same, getting data, accessing data. One of the things I found most interesting was when they do hackathons, and they do many, many, many hackathons, Those that create something in the event, it is able to get leveraged by the government. They have a procurement mechanism up to something like $70,000, at least at the time, that they could actually buy into creations. Whereas here, one of our frustrations with hackathons is the fact that over that weekend, let's say it's a weekend hackathon, government may find it useful what they're creating, but they aren't able to leverage it in any way. It's like, well, thanks a lot. You've won the prize. Go forth and have a great career. Again, another bit of frustration in terms of how can we not actually get some momentum with what's happening in those events, which are really quite remarkable and demonstrate how useful data can be. Comment from Lee that it's not quite a use case, but wouldn't using open data to build civic trust in Edmonton, who ranks so high in corruption, be relevant? Yes, they would, actually. And there's been many cities where certain things do get revealed. A lot of times it's the media that dig up some of this stuff. And freedom of information is still a way of getting data, by the way, if it's not released. I think what's interesting about that is it demonstrates one of the issues around actually freeing up data sometimes. A lot of times it's the political that enters and says, we can't release that simply because it reflects on us in a bad way. We'd like to turn that around and say, yes, but knowing what's wrong will help us improve it by knowing what's wrong. And wouldn't it be better to do that rather than just burying it or continuing on that way? Really interesting question that we may devote some attention to sometime on a webinar or a good cafe that we also present. Because sometimes the data is the ticket that is really the most conclusive information that demonstrates what you're talking about for people. And I'd love to see videos done internally by groups that were faced with those kind of challenges and how they solved them. So the internal group actually talks about the mess they were in and how they solved it. That would be wonderful. Media, by the way, is an active user in data. And so often it does come down to freedom of information requests, but not always. They're able to do investigations with available information sometimes and put two and two together. Media now are hiring and have hired data analysts and data scientists as needed on the job, just as cities and governments are moving in that direction too. So it's a long journey, but there are steps being made toward good things as well. Certainly don't want to give the idea that it's all negative. It's just that it's easier to talk about your frustrations sometimes than the good stuff. But there is lots of good stuff. Certainly a lot of cities and movement in government and the feds is demonstrating more understanding of the importance of it. And that's a good thing. But we do have to press on always and be on it, as I say, to make sure that things are moving forward. Now, next up, this one is probably, I wasn't sure whether I was going to show this one or not, simply because it involves Hitler, actually. And there was a meme going around on the web and internet available for people to use. It's from a movie, and I don't remember the name of the movie, actually, because I'm more familiar with the memes about it. But it's an actual segment from the movie where typically Hitler gets angry and does his rant, and you can actually provide your own text for it. So our buddy at large, Richard Pietro, again, who, by the way, defines himself as a storyteller, put this together around open data. So I find it's a little risque. But given circumstances in the world today, not just China, but what we've seen recently with the Emergency Act proclaimed in Parliament here in Canada, and certainly what's going on in the Ukraine with Russia right now, I felt we had to at least mention it, because much like what happened on Canada Day last year, when it was difficult to say Happy Canada Day, when close to Canada Day it was discovered the mass graves for Indigenous children. So it put a damper on it, and war, I think, is always putting a damper on things, and it's incredible what's going on. So as you watch this, I'd like you to consider what's going on in relation to the dictator and how he's dictating along. And of course, it ends with releasing open data, which is the denouement of this particular clip. But I thought it might be an interesting way to at least address that and make us think about how fragile our democracies are, how fragile the idea of getting any data and any access to open government, it's always on the cusp of being blown up. So I think we need to think about what we want and what we're prepared to do about it. And if we believe, as I do, and certainly as Open Data does, that data is good, it leads to trust and all of those things that are sometimes, including currently, being taken apart. So let's take a look at this and see what you think.
dem Feind gelungen, die Front in breiter Formation zu durchbrechen. Im Süden hat der Gegner Zossen genommen und stößt auf Stahnsdorf vor. Der Feind operiert jetzt am nördlichen Stadtrand zwischen Frohnau und Pankow und im Osten ist der Feind bis zur Linie Lichtenberg-Marsdorf-Karlshorst gelangt.
Mit dem Angriff Steiners wird das alles in Ordnung kommen.
Mein Führer, Steiner konnte nicht genügend Kräfte für einen Angriff massieren. Der Angriff Steiner ist nicht erfolgt.
Es bleiben im Raum Keitel, Jodl, Krebs und Burgdorf.
Das war ein Befehl! Der Angriff Steiners war ein Befehl! Wer sind Sie, dass Sie es wagen, sich meinen Befehl zu widersetzen? So weit ist das also gekommen. Der Militär hat mich belogen! Jeder hat mich belogen, sogar die SS! Die gesamte Generalität ist nichts weiter als ein Haufen niederträchtiger, treuloser Feiglinge!
Mein Führer, ich kann nicht zulassen, dass die Soldaten, die für Sie verbringen...
Nicht als Feiglinge! Verreiter, Versager!
Mein Führer, was Sie da sagen, ist ungeheuerlich.
Die Generalität ist das Geschmolz des deutschen Volkes! Sie ist ohne Ehre! Sie nennen sich Generale, weil Sie Jahre auf Militärakademien zugebracht haben, nur um zu lernen, wie man Messer und Gabel hält! Jahrelang hat das Militär meine Aktionen nur behindert! Es hat mir jeden nur erschöpfenden Widerstand in den Weg gelegt! Ich hätte gut daran getan, von Jahren alle höheren Offiziere liquidieren zu lassen, wie Stalin! Ich war nie auf einer Akademie. Und doch habe ich allein auf mich gestellt, ganz Europa erobert. Verräter! Von allem Anfang an bin ich so verraten und betrogen worden. Es wurde ein ungeheurer Verrat geübt am deutschen Volke. Aber alle diese Verräter werden bezahlen. Mit ihrem eigenen Blut werden sie bezahlen. Sie werden das saufen in ihrem eigenen Blut.
Bitte gerne. Jetzt beruhig dich doch.
Meine Befehle sind in den Wind gesprochen. Es ist unmöglich, unter diesen Umständen zu führen. Es ist aus. Der Krieg ist verloren. Aber wenn Sie, meine Herren, glauben, dass ich deswegen Berlin verlasse, irren Sie sich gewaltig. Eher jage ich mir eine Kugel durch den Kopf. Tun Sie, was Sie wollen.
Okay, so that's interesting. Actually, a comment from Jonathan on YouTube. Hello, Jonathan. I'm glad to see you there. Reminds me of Charlie Chapman's spoof on dictators. Indeed. Kafka wrote an interesting short story, The Great Wall of China. I wonder what he would write about the digital version. Yes, these are trying times, and I do want to reiterate this idea of how fragile some of these things are. So we may complain about the state of open data now, but when you think about it, we're in pretty good shape locally. And that's awesome, but I do believe it's fragile, and I just wanted to make that point given what's going on. I felt we had to speak to it too. I think it's just like the indigenous situation. We need to talk about these things as being part of our situation. So that being said, I'm not going to leave on a downer by any means. I've got a song that's been written by a fellow by the name of Dan Barrett. And Dan works in government in the UK. And he's a musician, and he also posts to SoundCloud, which is where I discovered. Actually, it was Feng Gao who told me about this song. posting on SoundCloud. So I went there, of course, and listened to it. And it's a lovely tune. And it's about his friend who happens to work in open data, or did at the time. Andy is his friend. So it's called Andy's Theme. And it's got a killer chorus. It's really about Andy as opposed to open data, but the chorus is such a wonderful thing. I felt it would be apropos to leave us with today. It's been wonderful sitting with you. Actually, a comment from Lee around this being like a film festival. So maybe there's a makings of a good film festival, perhaps, which is really nails it, doesn't it? I've certainly enjoyed running these videos and looking for them. And this one I think you'll enjoy. I like to subtitle it Open Data Save the World. So we'll play that, followed by just a quick credit reel, and look forward to seeing you again in good webinars, good cafes. Certainly our Open Data Conference is coming up tail end of April, 23rd of April. I sure hope I'm right about that, for 3 days. On Earth Day it begins. Our website, go-opendata.ca, has all the information. And it's been a pleasure. It's been an interesting experiment. We'll see how things played out on YouTube, et cetera, et cetera. So I invite you to stay tuned with us. Certainly subscribe to YouTube. Join us if you like. Become a member. And we are looking for volunteers, of course. So we'll play out with Andy's theme and then a quick credit reel, and then we'll end the meeting. Thank you so much for attending. Appreciate you staying with me. And happy Open Data Day.